All right, as promised, I literally just hit off and hit on because I wanted to separate these videos because this is a video that needs its own video, all right? Now, I just did fire on my last video, okay? I have no idea what's in store for this particular video, but I can tell you this. If you did not watch my other upload from today, which is probably going to be titled something about, I don't know, Sean O'Malley, Cody Garbrandt, judges or something along those lines, go watch that shit, okay? Fire. It's the Jesse on Fire show, okay? I know when I'm dropping haymakers and they're landing, and they are landing today. So watch it. And if you hate it, tell me why. You know, not enough analysis, just too much of this yap, okay? I got on here to hear what you think about Sean O'Malley and Cody Garbrandt. I don't care about your silly antics, Jesse on Fire. Wrong channel then, son. This is Jesse on Fire Antics channel. Fuck, man. Oh, I said the F word too early in the video. Frick. Think I'm gonna edit that out? I'm not. Fuck that. I swear when I want to swear. This is my motherfucking channel. All right, so we are talking about Ali Abdelaziz's interview with Brett Okamoto on whatever, I think it was ESPN, okay? This was a fascinating interview. Dude, Ali Abdelaziz is a fucking stud, man. Stud. He might be a little too cocky for me and him to be in the same room together. I'm just kidding. We would really get along. But I just, you know, I see so much of myself in him. He's just such an arrogant guy in such a, and I mean that in an absolutely complimentary way. Listen, what he's doing on there okay, actually, I'm sorry, let me rewind. For those of you who are not aware who Ali Abdelaziz is, okay, first of all, casual, but Ali Abdelaziz runs Domination MMA. I think that's what it's called, Domination MMA. And he manages 150 fighters, okay? And he currently manages, okay, so pretend Henry Cejudo didn't retire. He manages the current belt holders at 125, 135, 155, 170, and Gaethje. So he's actually got 5 belts. Like just right now, just 5 belts. As a matter of fact, he might actually have other champions, but I know for 100% sure he has them. He manages a huge percentage of UFC fighters, okay? And basically his pitch is collective bargaining, right? So before I even get into this thing, before I even get into what he said, for those of you who are unclear on collective bargaining and what that means, and then why Tito Ortiz, even as far back as Tito Ortiz, we're talking about fighters union, is they were saying what I've been saying, which is that the fighters have basically no leverage against the UFC, right? So you sign a multi-fight deal, the UFC has you locked in, you can't fight anywhere else, and I mean, you have no leverage, right? Fighter union, I mean, what are unions for, right? Does that mean, for you guys who are unclear on what unions do, they drive up wages, right? It's like, you know, so the truckers union or the Teamsters, it was like, oh, well, you need your food to get from point A to point B. Oh, you need your clothes to get from point A to point B. Well, guess what? You need a trucker to do that. And we collectively negotiate. And so, you know, if you want your stuff to get from point A to point B, then each one of the Teamsters is going to get a $60,000 salary. They're going to get a pension for life. We're going to get da-da-da-da. And collectively they bargained and they all get a better deal, okay? So the UFC, with, you know, all these separate managers and guys kind of running around, and I've heard stories about some people who manage fighters, like, and they have a couple fighters and like who they are and how they got into that job. And let's just say there are some people who are not professionals, you know, like, they're professionals, but this is like their first run at it, you know. And now let me just also say that doesn't mean that they're not good, right? Like a person, you know, this being their first run and them only having a couple fighters, that doesn't mean that they're not excellent at managing fighters. But you will always have more leverage with the UFC if you manage multiple fighters. Like, think about if Ali Abdelaziz wanted to really pull the ripcord on Dana. So, like, that's, and in the interview, you could hear that his approach, and when he brings guys in and they join his team, I was so fucking impressed with him, man. I'm like actually legitimately gonna whoop and take off Jesse on Fire and like talk for real, because now we're talking business and this is kind of my domain. Okay, so this is gonna be a much different video than the other one. Okay, so business. Okay, I was very impressed with Ali Abdelaziz. Okay, and basically the way he runs his team is guys that want to be managed by Ali, they're joining a team, and not only is he managing them just, as individual fighters. He has events where he brings them all together, right? He builds relationships between these fighters because ultimately, in order for there to be leverage in the collective, these guys need to agree to be looking out for the collective, right? So, like as an example, if you've got Justin Gaethje and you've got Usman and you've got whatever, and like Dana's trying to grind Gaethje and give him a garbage deal, well, guess what? If Khabib, Usman, and Triple C are all like, listen, man, that's not fair. We're gonna hold out unless he gets squared away. That's a tremendous amount of leverage, right? So like, but the point is, they have to agree to do that. They're individuals, right? Like just because they're on Ali Abdelaziz's team doesn't mean that they personally are gonna have to agree to hold out. So the only way that you're gonna get a team of guys to do that is you have to build real relationships to where you feel like you're taking care of a teammate, right? Like if it's just like, oh, we both are managed by Ali, you're gonna be way less likely to be an accepting member of that type of strategy, right? And all that really matters is that Dana knows that Ali can pull the string, right? That's all that really matters. When it comes to the negotiations, if Dana knows that if Ali pulls the string, that his fighters will do whatever he says, then that is tremendous leverage. And here's the other thing. If you think that Ali is not trying to drive towards being the head of a fighters union, listen, I'm speculating now, but he's got 150 fighters. There's 400 fighters in the UFC. Now, obviously, only half of those are well, not obviously, but he said half of those fighters have fought or do fight in the UFC. So it's not like he has it's not like he's got 50% of the fighters or anything currently, but he has a lot of the big names, And here's the thing. This is the thing to really understand about the finances as it relates to the UFC and the overall value, okay? If you put together a fight card, right? So you got 400 UFC fighters, right? I think it's something like that, 400, right? If you remove the most famous 25 UFC fighters off the roster, right? So you can't use the top 25 most famous, most well-known fighters. It might even be less than that, top 20, right? And then you put on a pay-per-view card, how well do you think that thing's gonna sell, right? So you figure out who you think the top 20 are, pull them off, you cannot use them. How well do you think that pay-per-view is going to do? So in reality, because the value is in the stars. Now the UFC builds the stars. So we're going to get into this, we can get into this again, whereby Dana, first of all, he's a cutthroat businessman, as Ali said, which I obviously knew. He's a street guy. And to him, he built this whole thing. The ability for these guys to make fucking $10 on a fight is because of him. And that's a fact, okay? That's just a fucking fact. And I will always qualify my opinion on this in that I am a person who has put my own money into a startup, okay? Taken money from my parents, put it into money that matters if we lost it. Put it into a startup, taken money from other family members, put it into a startup, raised millions of dollars, and then built a company out of it with tremendous pressure. And you're the CEO. It all falls on you, okay? And Dana was running the UFC. The Fertittas, until it really started working, were funding the UFC and they were kind of hands off. I know that exact structure. That is the exact structure that I was in, okay? It was on Dana, okay? That was on Dana. These guys were obviously, the Fertittas were supporting him, but Dana was the CEO and it was his idea. The whole thing was on him. So to Dana, accurately, he built this and he did. He did. And you cannot understand that unless you've done it, okay? Unless you've actually been the one who's taken on that risk, who's sweated all night. You're so stressed out. You're worried about the money you took. You can't see a way forward. You're like, how am I going to figure out my way out of this? Because every business has that moment on the way. Whoa, geez, that's just a fact. And Dana is the one who had those sleepless nights. So there is always going to be a balance where Dana is correct in feeling very give me a break. I built this. Okay, you're complaining because you're making $1 million on this next fight? $1 million? When we were building this company, I would have fucking sucked some guy's cock for $1 million. Okay, not really. Not really, Dana. This is probably a good time for me to reiterate that I will come work for you in 2 seconds, and please do not hold that last comment against me. I was just trying to reiterate how valuable $1 million would have been to you guys, or to you personally, when you were, not rolling in the dough and building the company, burning money as you were building it into the conglomerate that it is now. But yeah, so I understand his viewpoint. Simultaneously, the fighters should probably get paid more. I mean, the fighters should probably get paid more. The structure of the situation is that of the fighters not having very much leverage. So now let me actually talk to you guys about Ali Abdelaziz. Before I do that, I said this in my last video. I'm going to start saying this all the time. If you, viewer, are a person who is in this MMA community, UFC, MMA, whatever, and you watch this, I think that anyone who watches this knows it's inevitable. This channel is going to blow up. I'm going to blow up. It's just going to happen, okay? I'm playing with house money. It's going to work. And I am very open for business as it relates to management, okay? If you have if it's as simple as you making some phone calls, putting me in front of people where I can get wide exposure immediately, let's do this. I will sign a management agreement and let's make this happen, because I am looking for a fast forward button to that level, okay? Building one day at a time, I'll do it. I will do it. I mean, I'll crank these videos out every single day until they hit critical mass and it happens on its own. But guess what? Then someone's not going to be making 10% of my entire career. So I don't know. The opportunity's there. So if you're sitting here listening to this video and you've listened this far, ask yourself when the last time you listened to someone else talk about this, just them sitting there talking into a camera. Okay? I'm a rare talent motherfucking diamond in the rough, son. And I think anybody that watches can see that. I mean, listen, I don't go around my regular life talking about how big my dick is. But when I'm on camera, I will do exactly that. And it's fucking big. Not really. But kind of. Not really. Kind of. Depends on who you ask. It's all subjective. Okay? Fuck you. Anyway, so I was serious about the other thing, though. The management thing. So, yeah. So some of the things that Ali said, okay? First of all, Ali is the biggest threat to the UFC's kind of control over this fighter pay thing, obviously. Just for all the reasons that I just laid out. Okay? One of the things that Ali said was, okay, so like as an example, Jorge Masvidal and Jon Jones are like 1 or 2 fights into like 8 fight deals, right? And that's, Dana came out and said that, neither of them denied it, and it was like, okay. And I kind of, dude, honestly, when I heard that, I was like, dude, what? I mean, I don't know the exact terms. I don't know if their terms are ironed out in advance, whatever, but like, I don't know. To me, I'm like, you just signed a deal. Like, you're not going to fight for the terms that you signed for. I don't know. It seems kind of bizarre to me. But again, not Jesse on fire. Actual Jesse being serious. I do not know the terms of these fights. Or the contracts. I am not throwing rocks at Masvidal or Jon Jones at all. I do not know. I'm just saying that the impression from the outside is like, well, geez, they only fought 1 fight on an 8-fight agreement. It doesn't. Maybe just fight to those terms. But again, I do not know those terms. For all I know, you have to negotiate the price every single time. I don't know shit, okay? But what Ali Abdelaziz said is, he said, don't ever sign those 8-fight deals, ever, okay? So here's another thing. I've been paying close attention to all of the things that these guys talk about, okay? One thing Dana said is he has to offer you 3 fights a year, okay? Mandated. 3 fights a year is mandatory for Dana to offer you. Now, does he have to give you good fights? No. He can offer you whatever fucking fights he wants. Now, if you're a valuable commodity and he wants to throw you on the undercard just to be a prick, I mean, I don't think Dana's in the business for lighting fucking money on fire, right? So that's not a realistic thing. He's not going to do that. So if you really, even if you have 7 fights left, right? It's 2 years. Just fight. Just take the fights that they give you, fight it out. 2 years. You'll be super active, 3 fights a year, whatever you're making. Say you're making $400K, $400K a fight, you're going to make 7 figures. I mean, after you pay out everybody, like, that's the other thing. People are like, geez, he made $500,000 for that fight. Okay, nah. He paid $50,000 to his fucking manager. He paid $50,000 to his trainer off the top. Okay, so there's $400,000. I'm sure he owes someone else something. And then taxes. Let me, educate you motherfuckers that have never gotten a 6-figure check. Okay, your 6-figure check gets, okay. Like, as an example, last one, I get 100. Actually, it doesn't matter. But like, I think in order to net 100K, you have to get paid about 170-ish, depending on what state you're in. Like, if your commission's 100, or your whatever, your paycheck is 170K, then you'll net about $100,000. That's about right. Maybe a little bit less, but regardless, like, so what my point is like, it looks like a big number. It ain't really that big of a number, but nonetheless, you could fight your fucking contract out, right? Now, you are putting yourself in a position now, of course, it's a rough go because people have one moment where they are super valuable. And I understand Masvidal's position. It's like, he is as hot as he's ever going to get unless he wins the belt. If he wins the belt, dude, he is going to the fucking moon. To the moon. But it's a huge risk, right? He fights for whatever it is, and then he loses. And so anyway, so Ali Abdelaziz's whole point is he's like, don't sign these 8-fight fucking deals, man. Don't sign those. Like, why would you do that? Because it takes away all of your leverage. If you have 7 fights left, you know, and you come back after one fight and you're like, look, I want to renegotiate. They're just like, fuck you. You have 7 fights left, right? Now, when you get closer to the end, they know, they're like, we have to give him 2 more fights over the next 6 months, and then he's gone, right? That's why, and that makes perfect sense. So these 8-fight deals, that does not make any sense. I mean, it makes perfect sense for the fucking UFC. And, you know, I'll be honest with you. Now that I'm thinking this through, as I'm talking about this and thinking this through, I bet you that what those guys do is like for the Masvidal fight with Nate Diaz, they probably gave him a big number for that Nate Diaz fight. It was probably like, okay, so for this first fight, we're going to give you, you know, whatever, I don't know, $500,000 to show, and then, you know, whatever on the pay-per-view with a guarantee of at least, I don't know, call it $2 million or something like that, right? And then on the remaining fights on your contract, you know, you get $450,000 per fight, you know, unless it's for a title or a blah, 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 right? So there are like conditions that will make it different than that, like if you have the belt. And so you sign it because you're like, fucking, hey, $2 million, let's fucking do this. And then you win decisively, and now you're an even bigger star. And then on your next fight, you're getting paid half because those are the terms that were laid out. Because listen, for Masvidal as an example, think about it like this, all right? If you're the UFC, now Masvidal was a big star before Nate, but Masvidal incrementally got to where he is now by taking that shit from someone else, okay? So Darren Till, huge star, and he took that shine when he starched him. Then Ben Askren, undefeated, lots of noise. He starches him in fucking 4 seconds, right? 5 seconds, and then really takes the shine. But if you're the UFC, you don't know very much about Masvidal as a fighter from that fight, right? Like, he had a very clever opening, and he threw a flying knee against a guy who historically wrestles, who just went in for the shot very predictably, and he knocked him out. Okay, what does that tell you about Masvidal's future? Like, so what happens to Masvidal's value if he goes out and he gets the shit kicked out of him by Nate Diaz, right? So, like, the contract is basically set up to pay him a lot of money for what he's worth for that fight, but it's not set up well in case he beats the shit out of Nate Diaz like he did. It was set up for what if Nate Diaz wins. So he takes that money, he takes the money that he's getting paid for that particular fight, and if he wins, he's kind of set up for kind of getting fucked on the next fight, because he thinks in his mind, he's like, okay, well, that'll be a title fight. I could probably renegotiate, but either way, I'll win the title and then I'll have this different deal. But then when it's actually time to do it, he's like, dude, now he knows how big of a star he is, right? Like, he knows how big of a needle pusher he is, and he's like, this isn't fair. This is not fair. This is not fair. And candidly, I agree with him. Now that I'm talking this through, I fucking agree with him, because actually I would bet you that is the structure of his contract now. Now that I'm actually talking it through, I bet you that's exactly what happened. He got specific terms for the BMF thing, and then he had terms there, but with differences if he's the champion, and now they're not fair. I will bet you that's exactly what it is. Anyway, so that's that. So one of the things Ali said about, yeah, like I said, he said don't sign those 8-fight deals. But he did say, oh, this is the most insightful thing I mean, it was so smart what he said. He said never hold out. He was like, I don't care what you have going on, fight out your contract, never hold out. He's like, the one thing you can't get back in this business is time. I was like, fuck that, dude, that is so true. Like, that is so true. I mean, you know, it's something that I kind of thought about in the back of my mind where I'm like, dude, these guys are getting older, whatever. But at the same time, when you think about it through that lens, he's completely right. Like, holding out is the worst thing that you can do. If you're going to do it for a long period of time, it's the worst thing you can do. Because your shelf life is short. You want to earn as much as possible, right? But yeah, so I mean, yeah. The only other thing that he said that I thought was interesting was he said that that when he signs a contract with his fighters, he always fights like 2 or 3 of them. Like, so even if it's like a 6-fight deal, he said he'll always have his fighter do 2 or 3 of them first before he goes in to renegotiate, no matter what the outcomes are. So anyway, I'm very impressed with Ali Abdelaziz for obvious reasons, and I am looking for management, Ali Abdelaziz. I don't know if you get into, you know, most talented motherfuckers on the mic in history. You know, I could throw these things. I could throw these motherfucking things. I got a video coming up later showing me snapping kicks on things, just so that you guys know that the credibility's there, you know? Like, you know, not that I'm not going to go get in the octagon, because just, you know, my prime's a little past. Like, I don't think I'm going to catch up to the fucking UFC guys now. However, some shit fuck in the street wanted to run his mouth again. I mean, I haven't done that in a while, but I could snap a head kick still in a millisecond. So anyway, I'll put a video up of that later. But either way, if you like the channel, subscribe, ring the bell. I love you guys. Thank you very much. Early adopters, my favorite people on earth. Love you guys. Peace.